Hi guys and welcome back. I have been wanting to film this video for the longest time, but I just wanted my review videos to be a bit more informative rather than me just waffling. So I decided to give it a very loose structure, so it took me some time to collate what I wanted to say and just, you know, make notes so that I didn't miss anything. I am sorry for the screaming children outside, can't control that, and also this video might be a bit choppy just because there's some drilling outside, so I have to stop filming every time they start drilling. But let's get into the video. The book that I'm going to be talking about today is Everything I Know About Love by Dolly Alderton. I've spoken about this in a couple of videos before, but I just really wanted to do a full review on this. Everything I Know About Love is Dolly Alderton's memoir. She's only 28, 29, so this book goes up to everything she's learned until she is 28. Dolly basically summarises in this book that everything that she knows about love has been found in the great friendships that she has. So like I said, this book is a memoir and it's basically a collection of Dolly's account of her 20s, so it's filled with like personal stories, but then it's also filled with like recipes. So i.e. there's a recipe in there for like a sandwich to make when you get kicked out of a club because you're too drunk. It's full of lists, just random lists of things, and then text messages that her friends have allowed her to send to her other friends. So it isn't just straight writing, some of it is just broken up into bits of just really funny text. She takes us through being a young girl who grows up in Stanmore, which is in London. It's a very far end of the Jubilee line in London. Talks us through that, talks us through being a teenager and spending most of her time on MSN, which I love because as a 90s kid I can really remember when MSN was the place to be. We go through her teenage years, when she goes to university, the friends she makes at uni, finding a career, you know, getting a job and everything else that comes after that. The book is set chronologically, so you literally do just follow her life through that way, and I like that because I know a lot of memoirs tend to dip back into the past and then come back into the future. Like, this is all just laid out in a good way that you can actually understand what is going on, so therefore you get to sort of follow, well, most of it is chronological towards when she's in her 20s. I think it sort of dips in between different times in her 20s, but you're still sort of in that 20s period. And there she's talking about like breakups, failed relationships, different friendships. So she has a really good group of friends. Her best friend is Farley, there's a girl named India, and there's a girl named Belle, I think. Belle? I'm not really too sure. But you basically find out like what her friendship group is like, and I think she develops this friendship group. Farley is her friend from secondary school, I know that for sure. I think the other two might be from secondary school, she might make friends with them in university. But basically one of the most important sort of moments in this book is when her best friend Farley gets engaged at 25 and how their relationship changes. I think because most people don't tend to get engaged that young, it was a shock, I guess, to both of them, and Dolly's actually the one that ended up introducing them. But there's a large focus on how Dolly felt about her friend getting engaged, because it basically meant that she was essentially replaced. And it wasn't done intentionally, but obviously when you're best friends with someone and you do things together all the time, you know each other's families. Slowly, when Farley, you know, had her boyfriend and they got engaged, a lot of the time that, you know, the place that Dolly would take at like family events, Scott was taking the place. Scott is the guy that Farley is engaged to. Scott took that place, so there was a bit of like, I guess, jealousy developing, and the book talks a lot about how Dolly herself actually dealt with that, which wasn't great initially, but in the end she does suck it up and does become a good friend to Farley after just sort of reassessing her own feelings. As the book goes on, you get to see how Dolly deals with this when this happens to other friends. By then she's a lot more mature, but you know, she's watching her friends hit all these milestones that she's not hitting. They're, you know, developing serious relationships. She lives with, I think, India and Belle, and so as the two girls develop serious relationships, they end up leaving the house, and it's more about like how Dolly feels about that as well. The book is also about many funny things other than Dolly's little bit of jealousy, which isn't even misplaced, but The book also deals with like many drunken nights that she's talking about. A lot of her stories are absolutely hilarious. She talks about relationships, she talks about her eating disorder, she talks about low mood, sort of like imposter syndrome. She talks a little bit about her career. Basically everything is in this book. Everything that you might feel as a female in your 20s, perhaps growing up in London or any other major city, is in this book. What I liked about this book is the way it's written. So Dolly writes this book not really in a way of, okay, I've done this, so don't do this. More like, I did this and this was a really horrible outcome. It's written more as if she's your friend, and that she's recounting sort of these tales to you than any sort of instruction for you for how to live your life. There's a really, really sad part in this book that I wasn't expecting, but I guess it's more like none of them were expecting this in the book. I love the way Dolly wrote about this. She dealt with it with such grace, and she just wrote about it really delicately, and it was super emotional. I remember reading it on the plane, and I just had to close the book and just sit there for a bit, because one, I wasn't expecting it, but also two, it was just really sad. And I won't ruin it. Usually I talk about spoilers in my videos, but I feel like you should read this and find out what it is. But yeah, that was actually really sad. So the book takes you obviously through the highs and lows of her life, but then it basically concludes with her saying, you know, in the end, like, you've got you, like, the strongest sort of person you have in your life and the sort of constant is you, so like, you'll get through any of this. I feel like anyone in their 20s or anyone that's like a 90s baby / late 80s baby will really like this book. I think it's really witty, it's really funny, and even if you can't relate to Dolly's stories, I think you'll just find it really funny. I don't think anyone like over 30 would really, I don't know, maybe get anything from this book, because I don't really see how they could, just given Dolly's age, but I would say, yeah, the audience is definitely females in their 20s. So I hope that was actually a brief rundown of the book. But I'm just going to move on to why I actually liked this book so much. I think first off, I just love the cultural references. I could relate to a lot of the things that Dolly said when she was talking about like MSN or like things that would have happened during the time that she was at uni. I could just remember them for myself because we're a similar age, so for me it was just like, oh my god, I know that. But yeah, a lot of her experiences felt like my experiences as well, and even if they didn't, I was still able to sort of read about them and enjoy it. So I thought that was really good. Even though a lot of her experiences felt like my experiences, I think we just come from two different worlds, but it just seemed like they had happened but in two different worlds, so it actually felt really great to be reading this. So yeah, the cultural references, the relatability, for me that was there, and I was just like, I'm really liking this book. There's also a quote that I'll put on the screen about what she said about this book, and I want to include it just because I think she's done that really well in this book. Like, she's achieved, I guess, what she set out to achieve. I think, like she says in that quote, that there's a lot placed on romantic love, and I think it's very easy to say that as a single girl, because you might be a bit like, huh, I don't need no man, but we do live in a culture where a lot is placed on romantic love, and therefore we sort of feel like we're not good enough if we're not hitting those milestones. And then you tend to forget that actually day-to-day love that you see on a day-to-day basis from your friends and from your family. And I think everyone is guilty of that. I feel like she covered the inadequacy point really well. I feel like with a lot of people, when you see like people you went to school with, you know, progressing along that linear path of, you know, going to sixth form, going to uni, finding a partner, living with them, getting engaged, having babies, you're a bit like, why isn't this happening for me? Of course, we know being single doesn't suck. You get so much time to like work on yourself and also just do so many things that can be really tough when you're in a relationship. But I think the great point that Dolly makes is that a lot of these failed relationships and failed friendships can really take its toll on you and make you view things in a really negative light, and obviously there's a reason for that, but I think she covers it well in that sense that it's not just you. And that's another thing I loved about this book. I loved how open Dolly was. Like, she literally poured her loneliness, her desperation, her neediness all into this memoir so that so many people could read it, and I think that's such a brave thing to do, because those are feelings you usually keep hidden, you reserve for yourself, you share with your friends maybe, but it's a really, really like horrible feeling to have. So the fact that she's written that down, you know, committed it to paper and then published it so people could read, I think that's so brave of her, and I think it just, for me at least, reading it allowed me to know that I wasn't alone, and I know so many other people reading it will think, oh my god, it's not just me. I also think it's a really good thing for her to have done, because I feel like once you're able to like look back at something, you're able to view it in a different way and sort of learn from it. You know, hindsight is always a great thing, but it also just, you know, allows you to own the situation and like sort of take your power back from that situation. So I think for her it was probably really therapeutic as well. I feel like the book just makes you sort of look into yourself as well as like laugh along with Dolly. You sort of look into the really sort of dark parts that you might have had in your heart, like, you know, when relationships have failed or situationships have failed, even when friendships have failed, but you also look at the really funny stuff and like the funny stories that you have with your friends and the funny stories you have in life. She has so many like friendship stories that are like, you know, just that come about just at a random night out, and I think like so many people have those as well. So I feel like this book really allows you to relive both sides. You sort of know that you're not alone in the sad stuff. I mean, you're not alone in the happy stuff either, but you never want to be, but you also realise there's this really great balance in your life. Basically, you can tell I love this book because I feel like it's just me, that someone's written a really great story and a bit more exciting and more flourished than my life is. But I just loved how relatable this book was. You sort of just sit there and realise that everyone has all these really uncomfortable and horrible situations, and the only way out of them is to ride it out. Like, no one comes through this unscathed. Like, I would just read things and be like, oh my god, me too. Then I'd read other things and be like, thank god, not me. But then you just know that at the end of it, she's come out of it fine. Like, she's not dead, she's not like scarred for life, like she's okay, and you realise, you reading it as well, that you're absolutely fine too. The final point I want to touch on about this book is when Dolly talks about her going to therapy. I thought first of all it was a really great thing for her to go to therapy, but also to write it in the book, and I liked the way she talked about her journey with therapy. I feel like sometimes when you hear about therapy, you hear people going and then all of a sudden they're miraculously cured, and you know, she does learn a lot about herself through therapy, but I like that she talks about like the highs and lows of it. If you've ever had therapy, it's incredibly exhausting, and you probably start off in the beginning like, you know, like maybe you don't want to go, and then like sort of think, okay, this isn't too bad, but then it gets to this point where it's really exhausting and you're going through this like, I guess, tough time with your therapist, but you know, they're really trying to get it out of you, and you sometimes just walk away from there feeling exhausted and like you do not want to go back, and that's essentially the sort of situation that Dolly had, and I just liked how she wrote about it. She did end up going back, she ended up, you know, working on it to get better, but I feel like she talked about a very I say accurate, but also a situation that I could relate to very well, and I think it just made therapy a bit more accessible for people. I think it made people realise you don't have to have like a mental illness to definitely go for therapy. Therapy is good for everyone regardless of where you are in life. So yeah, her frank account of therapy was just really, really powerful for me, and I think it will definitely help a lot of people. And yeah, she just seemed to learn a lot about herself. She changed in ways I guess she didn't think she would, and I think overall it just made her a better person and made her like herself a lot more. So yeah, that is my thoughts about the book. I love that this book just basically champions women, focuses on female friendship, and just a little bit of like, lol, what is my life? Is this really what my life has come to? I haven't really spoken that much about the female friendship in this book, but I feel like that's an experience that you have to gain from reading this book. There are so many things I liked about the book, but obviously the female friendship aspect is the running themes throughout this book, and I think it's a wonderful conclusion, especially for like the modern woman to come to, because it might just be the case that you might be single for a while, so you better get to liking your friends a lot more. But on an actual serious note, I have always valued my friendships and definitely know that they have helped me out a lot more. And even before this book, I've always realised that it has been the constant in my life, so I'm definitely very, very grateful for my female friends, and I just like that this book shines this huge torch in it, and it's not a book about romantic love, because you would think that looking at the title, but in the end it's perfect. It's just telling you to look around what you have and just cherish it. So yeah, that is me done talking about this book, but I guess what I should leave you with is why you should actually read this book. You should read it because it's someone being open and vulnerable about their relationships and their friendships. You should also read it because Dolly's really funny. The way she writes about a lot of the experiences is hilarious, and I think it will just make you laugh if anything. But also the final point you should read it is because it will make you cherish your friends more. So that is me done talking about this book. Has anyone read this book? If you've read this book, please leave me a comment below. I would just like to have a nice little discussion about what you found great about this book, or if you didn't like this book, why you didn't like it. And if anyone has any recommendations for similar books like that, if you have read it, I'd be really interested in hearing that. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I will catch you in my next one. Bye!